Hello everybody, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Oyundi Furipredani Mashapa, Wanayana Wamuvenda. And if you're here for the first time, welcome. If you're a returning subscriber, a veteran in this channel, welcome back for yet another exciting episode of Risk Money and Insurance, okay? And so today we are having just like a very chilled conversation, right? A chilled conversation about things that I didn't know about actuarial science before studying actuarial science. So before going to UCT, before working, and I just want to unpack all of that because I feel like we don't really have such conversations. But I've seen on YouTube that there are a couple of people that have actually done the videos and all of that. But I want to personalize this for me, right? What are some of the things that I didn't know about actuarial science before actually, starting with the whole, shenanigan, right? Number one, I'll definitely say that it's not all about the maths, right? And to be quite honest, the selling point, if you actually say Google actuarial science, they'll tell you it's someone who's very mathematical, they must be able to analytical, they must be, able to apply mathematics, have mathematics skills and all of that. Yeah, we hear the maths, but the mathematics will only get you through the very first few subjects, right, of your whole qualifying journey. They will get you through those first, university very technical university courses. And after that, guys, it's words and words and words and more words and more words and more words. And you're like, where's the maths? My teacher lied to me. Where's the maths? So it's definitely not all about the maths. And actually, a lot of people get into actuarial science thinking, I love maths, so I should be able to do this. Well, it's not all about the maths, right? Number two, right? It's that, you will get paid. There is a lot of money in actuarial science. And okay, we actually fall, actuarial graduates in South Africa, they fall on the top 1%, the top 1% of the most paid graduates. Actuarial science students or graduates are there in the top 1%, right? That's amazing, right? Of course, we're part of the elite group. Anyways, not to brag, but we're part of that 1%, right? The top 1% most paid graduates. Okay, that's cool. But what they actually don't tell you is that it's not just you having your degree that will get you to that top 1% most paid graduates. It's actually the number of exemptions that you will come out of university with that will determine how much you are actually going to be paid. And this is if you are actually, from, if you're working for a very traditional actuarial company, then that's where your number of exemptions really matter. So your life insurers, your general insurers, the number of exemptions that you have will actually matter, right? But if you go to consulting and all of that, some actually do take it into account, other companies don't. Different companies actually vary, the salary and all of that. It depends on which company it is. But if you're going the traditional actuarial route, then most probably they will rely on the number of exemptions that you have from university to determine how much money they should pay you. So if you go to university and course chows you and it deals with you, by the time you actually finish, you might actually not be in the top 1% because you don't have all your exemptions. And this was a shocker. Final year, we're doing interviews. They're like, how many exemptions do you have? You're like, hi, Bo! Nobody told me. But it's something that even as you go to university, or if you are in university, please get those exemptions because it's not cute. It's not cute if you don't have, as many exemptions as you can, right? And also another thing, right, that I sort of didn't know about, actuarial science before studying is that, this baby can be hard. You think it's going to be just about the maths, but I think university, you just focus on studying, right? And that's fine. You can do your best to get all your exemptions almost, for all or miss one or two in university. But then when you start working, balancing work and studying and having a life and doing other things, it becomes really, really hard. Like, I feel like I underestimated the sacrifice that I would have to make in order for me to qualify, if that makes sense. Like, you kind of feel like, oh man, I've been acing, high school, so what more about actuarial science? You get to UCT, you realize, actually, And then when you get to work, it's even harder because you're adding another layer of responsibility. It's not just about you and studying, it's about work as well. There's a third layer that you're adding to the mix. And then you're also trying to live as a young individual, well marriages, well relationship goals, well friendship goals. So you also have all those other things that you're trying to balance out, and your schedule is already busy. So it's like, really, the sacrifices that you have to make. Like, sometimes I have to say no to my friends. I have to say no to attending, things that are close to me. Like, when my sister was getting married, I had an exam day before her wedding, right? And it was so crazy. Like, from finishing writing the exam, I had to switch modes to like getting into celebration mode. Those are sacrifices. I missed a lot of things. I missed the bridal shower. I missed the final part of the lobola. Like, you get to miss out on some of the significant events that will happen, whether in your life or in the lives of people close to you or in your family. Like, it's painful. The sacrifices are a lot, but we hold on, we persevere, hoping that in the end it will all be worth it, right? And then another thing that I also didn't quite know before actually studying actuarial science was actually the differences in the number of exemptions, right? So if you go to UCT, you get a maximum of 10. If you go to VETS, I think if you go to VETS, you get a maximum of 12 or 13. I'm not sure, but my VETS people can sort of comment can give the thingy in the comment section below. Or if you go to UP, you get something like 12 or 13. I'm not sure. So these are some of the things that I didn't know, right? Where you finish and you feel like, if I'm done from UCT, then it'll be I'll be working, I can write my fellowship, and then I'm done. But it turns out, no, there are a couple of exams that are actually not offered by UCT. So perhaps if your focus is, I want to get the exams out of the way in my undergrad and in my honors year, then perhaps UCT is not really a good option, if you think, looking at it from that point of view. Because if you want to do more exams with UCT, you need to now enroll for masters. But if someone does their honors with VETS, then they in essence get more exemptions, which you can actually get at UCT if you are doing your masters. So it's one of those things where you're yeah, did I really masters or the postgraduate diploma in actuarial science at UCT? So these are some of the things that I didn't know, where you once you've enrolled and you're talking to your VETS friends, then you start realizing, oh shucks, it's not, they get to write more exams that give them more exemptions. So even though we are we started on the same year, we actually won't finish with the same number of exemptions. So it's also another thing to consider. I mean, do I actually regret going back to UCT, going to study at UCT? No, I probably don't. Because I feel like the technical background that I got from UCT and the torture from UCT made me who I am today. I'm a better actuary to be because of that. So it's also one of those things you just need to balance out things as well, to say, yeah, UCT or VETS or UP, where do you want to go, and also why, and also make a very informed decision, because this is your career that we're talking about. This thing of once you qualify as an actuary, you will make a lot of money. A lot of money means different things to different people. And to be quite honest, I do not think that actuarial science, it's the easiest way to make money. It's the easiest way to make a lot of money, because you start looking at people with things like investment banking, you start looking at asset management, and compare that to actuarial science and the suffering that we go through, and you're like, this thing is not the easiest way to make money. I could be an investment banker, I could be an asset manager. So if your reason for studying actuarial science is simply because I'll make a lot of money once I qualify. Probably not. Probably not gonna happen. So it's also one of the things that you need to sort of like really think about and think about carefully as well, to say, am I really doing this because I'm passionate about it? I'm doing this for the money? Because if it's not for the money, honestly, the sacrifice and the suffering that we go through, probably not worth it. There are easier ways to make money out there. And like my lecturer used to say that in final year, and you there in final year thinking, you should have told me a long time ago in first year that there are easier ways to make money. But anyways, those are like, that's also like one thing that I actually didn't know. Because people will tell you, of course, the job security, you will get a job. But yeah, this leads to also like another thing that I wish I knew about actuarial science. So we do say like, well, if you have an actuarial science degree, it's going to be, very impossible for you to just chill around and not actually have a job. But to be quite honest, there are people that have actuarial science degrees that suffer a bit before getting a job. And sometimes it might be an issue of perhaps you didn't really get a lot of exemptions and you were not part of a bursary program. So you are sort of like applying, right? You're competing with other candidates to actually get the job. Of course, employers, they want to reduce the amount of money that they will spend on you in terms of your studying and your leave and all of that. Of course, they're not, in as much as they look at other factors, but to be quite honest, if we present an individual with a lot of exemptions, they lead a balanced life. So they're not only focused on studying, but they also do other things on the side as well. They are quite innovative. They work well in a team. They have quite some experience in terms of, they're like an attractive individual, an attractive graduate, for a lot of companies. Of course, companies are going to go for that person before they consider you, because all of you now have an actuarial science degree. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to get the one with the best, quality, the quality one, the one with quality, whether quality in terms of exemptions or quality in terms of just the personality and the life that they lead, and also how they presented themselves, in an interview, which honestly, the fact that you have an actuarial degree just becomes, you have an actuarial degree, so what? What more do you have? You have a degree, but what's in that degree? What exemptions you have? What other things you have? What makes you a better fit for this job that we're actually advertising? So the competition is tough. And I remember like in final year, that was the time where I was really, really grateful that I have, a bursary, because I knew by the time I graduate, I already have a job. And in my final year, I was also considering, do I leave Old Mutual? Do I stay with Old Mutual? Do I ask someone to buy me out? Is there someone who's actually willing to buy me out and all of that? Because for me, that was like a negotiation thing to say, if someone is willing to buy me out, then I can use that as leverage, for Old Mutual. Because as a grad, you don't have experience, you don't have anything. So it's sort of like now it's a thing of who wants you, you can use that as a sort of like a negotiation leverage. But besides that, you just like stuck, you're just there waiting for that job. So it was really, really like, it was hectic to actually see, how tough interviews are. At the same time, you're still trying to get those exemptions in final year. You are trying to write, your thesis as well, or your research project, whatever you call it, in your final year. You are trying to just finish this degree, right? You want to be done with university. And then there's additional stress coming from interviews, getting that we regret to inform you later and all of that. Like, it's so stressful. So if I had to go back, would I do it with a bursary again? I'll definitely do it with a bursary. After seeing the struggles that some people like went through, especially like in final year, in terms of, getting a job, just like getting a job, that's so stressful. That was a really, really stressful process. But for me, it was a thing of, at least I see what I want. I can try. If it works out, it works out. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. Like, I'm still okay. I had a safety net. So for me, that's like sort of one thing that I wish I knew, that in as much as there are jobs, you must be I don't know, I don't want to say equality, but lack of a better word, I'd say a quality candidate. It's not just about having the perfect scores. perfect scores actually matter, but also being well-rounded, like doing something at RAISE. I was a subwarden at RAISE at some point, doing things like that, being involved in leadership things. I was a treasurer at UCT SCF. Those are the things that make you attractive as a graduate, right? Because then they'll be like, leadership, okay, you worked in a team, da 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 da, conflict resolutions. Like, it makes you interesting as an individual, rather than you saying like, oh well, nah, I just have the exemptions only. Because sometimes you might actually not get the opportunities, though it's unlikely. You're more likely to get a job when you have those exemptions than when you actually don't. But overall, they assess like you being well-rounded, well-balanced, and all of that. So it's quite important to invest in those things. And as much as it's tough to actually balance everything out, but it is quite important, because when you go for those interviews, it's tough. It's really, really, really tough. Those companies will be rejecting you, and you will be saying, but I am from the #1 university in Africa. What do you mean you reject me? So it's it's one of those things. So it's not just about having the degree. The last few things that I actually like, some of the things that I didn't know is that you don't necessarily need an actuarial degree to qualify as an actuary. If you have like stats and maths, and you also do like a bit of ecos and accounting, you can sort of like find your way into actuarial science later on via the Actuarial Society of South Africa. You can start with a foundation course, and then you can like sort of catch up on the other actuarial courses that your peers would have done in their actuarial degree. Then you can sort of like catch up from that point of view and do all the exams and all of that. So you don't necessarily need an actuarial degree to actually qualify as an actuary. So that was one thing that I like, I didn't know about that. I only found out, once we're there in the deep trenches of UCT. And another thing that it was like the shock of my life. It was really, really a shock in my life when I started working, is how much, undergrad, we did a lot of maths and a lot of, let's just say a lot of stats compared to maths. There was a lot of stats, right, in our courses and all of that. And you're doing all those complicated things. And when you actually start working, you sort of move away from like all that heavy maths and stats and programming and all of that. And you start like using Excel like crazy. I feel like 80% of the time, if I'm using a software, it's actually Excel. And then there's like that 20% of the time where I'm not really using Excel. But of course, this differs from like what department you're in, what job you're doing, and all of that. But we literally stay away from all those difficult stochastic differential equations, and you start like, you do quite simple stuff. And also with the stochastic differential equations, probably there's a software or something that will solve that for you. You don't really have to do that. So even in your job, it's not mathy. It's Excel, a lot of Excel. A lot of people will agree with me. Or you are using like a specific software like Prophet or Moses, whatever you're using, right? So that was like a shock for me, to be like, the way I'm using so much Excel. I was quite excited to be deep in the trenches of like modeling, deep in the trenches of, solving some difficult stochastic, equations. But it turns out it's not like that at all, like in practice. And I think it's something that if you are solely getting into actuarial science simply because you enjoy numbers, you might actually have to rethink your option, because even in the workplace, you won't really like use a lot of maths. You will use it, but in a computer type of vibe. You do very little work in terms of solving the maths. And then the last one that I will sort of say is, not realizing how expensive qualifying as an actuary is. And if you are part of, a big life insurance company, then they're probably going to pay that for you. But for me, whenever like I register for exams, or I register for courses, or whatever it is that I'm registering, I look at the cost and I'm like, this is ridiculous. So for example, if you are a student, you didn't really make it to the big life insurers or the general insurers in South Africa, you're more likely to settle for a small firm, right? Mostly small consulting companies take up like a lot of like XI grades and all of that. So if you end up there, most of them actually don't pay for your exams, but you'll be lucky if you find yourself in, you know, one that actually pays for exams. So if you find yourself in one that doesn't pay for exams, you'll soon realize how expensive those notes are, how expensive your study material is, those revision cards and all of that. And it's like ridiculous because you will have to pay for that using your own salary. So like exams can be like 8,000, 13,000 for one exam, CA1, so expensive. And if you fail, you need to pay for that again. So it's like, oh my goodness, this stuff is expensive. So in a nutshell, what am I saying? If you are considering actuarial science, at least have an interest in insurance, because your exams, most of them will be based on insurance. But of course, there are options like banking. You know, you can do banking exams, you can do investment exams if you want. But most of the exams, early exams and some of the later exams are really, really based on insurance. So at least be interested in insurance first. You know, we understand the maths. You really need a good, you know, mathematical, technical background, but it's also quite important to have interest in insurance where you will be applying your mathematics. And also, there are easier ways to make money. Just to sum it up, you don't really need to be an actuary to make a lot of money. Actually, there are other professions out there that kill it in terms of making money. So if your main motive is making money, then perhaps reconsider your option. When you're in university and doing actuarial science, please get as many exemptions as you can. Probably all of them, right? It'll be good for your salary, your starting salary, and also it will make you attractive. And not only that, try to do something like to fill your CV in. Maybe tutor a course, or, you know, maybe become a subordinate res, or do something at res at least, you know. My friend in Sundeni always says, you know, to come out of university with just a degree, that's good. But, you know, you need to come out with a degree that's, you know, furnished with leadership and networks and other things. That's excellent. That's the one we want. We send you to university to not only get the degree, but to come out as a well-rounded individual ready for the corporate world. But though that's debatable, but anyways, let's leave it at that. And also the last thing would be, you know, what will be the last thing? I think we've covered everything. So thank you so much, guys, for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I just wanted it to be chilled, like a very heart-to-heart session, so that, you know, if you don't know these things and you are considering actuarial science, then these are the things that you might actually have to consider before just jumping in and deciding, I want to be an actuary. But anyways, I still want to be an actuary, knowing what I know now and the punches and everything. Thank you so much, guys, for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this conversation, and I will see you guys in the next video. Oh, bye.